Good morning. Thanks for being here. It's been a long year. I was telling people it feels like it's been a year and a half instead of a year. But on this first anniversary of my being sworn in as the 55th United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York, I want to first say thank you to President Trump for his confidence in me to lead this office, and thank you to Attorney General Bondi for your support and leadership in keeping me here in this great office. Today I wanted to bring everybody together to talk about the state of our office, where we are, what we've accomplished over the past year, and some of the challenges we faced, and where we're headed. So let me start with the most important point. The Northern District of New York has a strong office because of people in this room and the people on our field offices, and the attorneys, the professional staff, the administrative personnel, every single part of the operation that allows us to do the work that we do every day. One of my greatest priorities is to foster a unified workforce dedicated to protecting the communities we serve. The work of this office is strongest when our criminal, civil, appellate, and administrative professionals operate not as separate components, but as one team with a shared mission. That means strengthening collaboration within the office, deepening our partnerships with local, federal, state, and law enforcement, and maintaining strong relationships with the community. By working together, sharing information, resources, and expertise, we amplify our impact and ensure that our efforts to combat crime, defend the public, are coordinated, strategic, and effective. A unified office and strong partnerships are force multipliers, and they make our district safer. I'd like to take a few minutes to walk through some of the notable highlights from each of our divisions and recognize the outstanding work they have done over the past year in furtherance of our shared mission. Let's start with the criminal division. On the criminal side, among other things, our district must contend with consequences arising from the oppressive, reckless, irresponsible, failed New York State bail reform and discovery reform that has resulted in violent and/or repeat offenders being released from state custody onto our community streets. When I assumed leadership of this office, I committed wholeheartedly to find new and proactive ways to protect our communities and to focus on the issues that most directly impact public safety in our district. That includes violent crime, transnational drug trafficking organizations, and the continued threat posed by fentanyl and synthetic narcotics, firearms offenses, evil individuals who sexually abuse children, and immigration offenses. I have dropped charging thresholds across the board of criminal cases to reach the greatest number of dangerous actors and to broaden our efforts to make small investigations and cases into more impactful, larger investigations and prosecutions. We have worked closely with our federal, state, local law enforcement partners across the district to investigate and prosecute those cases. Since I started as United States Attorney, I made it a priority to meet state and local law enforcement throughout the Northern District of New York and brought with me the SACs, and I want to recognize Craig Tremoroli from the FBI who's here, and Luis Alvarez, the ASAC, who helped me in the beginning to form all of this. We went to, with the other federal law enforcement SACs from the other agencies, we brought key stakeholders together across jurisdictions to strengthen the communications, enhance mutual understanding, and increase public safety. To date, the federal law enforcement team I am leading has met with local enforcement in 32 counties. There's only 62 in the whole state. We have 32 of them. So it was some feat to do between April and August. The results have been tremendous. These law enforcement agencies have opened dozens of new cases involving drugs, guns, child predators, illegal aliens, and human smugglers, cases that would have never been brought here in the past. But because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in here in New York, things had to change for the betterment of our communities. I've also strengthened the partnerships among federal, state, and local law enforcement organizations by recruiting and cross-designating assistant district attorneys from counties throughout the district as Special Assistant United States Attorneys. Under my supervision to date, I have appointed 18 SAUSAs from 11 different counties, with many more pending. This model, which is unprecedented both within the district and around the nation, will enable us to take more violent criminals off the street, more weapons out of their hands, more child predators off the streets, to make our communities safer despite the resistance from current leaders in the state legislature. I am proud to welcome more ADAs and FAUSAs and look forward to the contributions they will make to our mission. Upon learning from our federal law enforcement partners that the northern border shared with the St. Regis Mohawk Reservation at Akwesasne poses the most serious national security threat to America of any border today, we got together, we talked about it, and then we decided we're going to make a visit up there. So on June 4th, 2025, I led a delegation of the leadership of the Northern District's federal law enforcement agencies and invited our Canadian counterparts, heads of its law enforcement, who readily joined us to meet with the St. Regis Mohawk chiefs and sub-chiefs on their reservation to discuss mutual cooperation in combating the flow of fentanyl, human trafficking, terrorist cells crossing into our northern border, as well as illegal firearms crossing the U.S. into Canada. I will continue to lead this office's efforts to proactively address this crisis by working with our law enforcement partners to leveraging resources the AG and DAG have offered to me. In fact, I leave today for Washington, D.C. to meet with AG Bondi, DAG Blanche, and Board Czar Tom Homan to discuss this very topic. Statistics kept by EOUSA reflect success of these efforts. In the last year, our district filed 21% more cases per AUSA than both the national average and the average large district. We filed 170% more cases per AUSA than the average Second Circuit District AUSA. Our case view statistics show that we filed 160 more cases in 2025 than we did in 2024. Some criminal division highlights. U.S. versus Stephanie Square. In June 2024, Carrie Sharrow, Dakota Montour, Janet Terrance, Storm Delmori, Timothy Oakes, and Stephanie Square were indicted for their roles in a deadly human smuggling conspiracy. The smuggling conspiracy took place over 3 days in March 2023 on the Akwesasne Mohawk Indian Reservation in Franklin County, New York. Due to the high winds and rough water conditions, the smuggling vessel capsized and a total of 9 people, 8 immigrants and 1 co-conspirator drowned. Sharrow, Montour, and Terrance have pled guilty. Oakes was arrested on June 15, 2025, and Square was extradited from Canada on October 30th, 2025. U.S. versus Jader Augusto Uribe Tobar. The defendant, a Canadian-based alien smuggler, attempted to smuggle a pregnant migrant into the United States, but the migrant drowned in the Great Chazy River. In October 2025, the defendant pled guilty to alien smuggling and conspiracy to commit alien smuggling. Cayuga County Worksite Enforcement Operation. In September 2025, as a result of a worksite enforcement operation spearheaded by Homeland Security Investigations, IRS, CI, and U.S. Border Patrol in Cayuga County, New York, 5 individuals were arrested criminally and charged with illegally re-entering the United States after a prior removal. Of these defendants, 4 have pled guilty and have been sentenced. Charges against the 5th were dismissed after a motion was granted to suppress. And however, that person, along with the other 4, were readily deported. Operation Tidal Wave. 3 defendants, Isaiah Cox, Kaya Cox, Sincere Cox, were charged by complaint in August of 2025 with a bank fraud conspiracy. In executing search warrants in connection with the bank fraud investigation, law enforcement seized more than 140 firearms from various locations in the capital region. This was one of the largest firearm seizures, if not the largest, in the history of the Northern District of New York. The removal of these weapons from our streets can be measured in saved lives. Guns that could have been used to kill and maim, guns that could have been arming gangs, guns that could have devastated families are now off the streets forever. Operation Empire Mule. This nationwide drug traffic investigation led to the seizure of, among other drugs, 475 kilograms of cocaine, 190 pounds of methamphetamine, 623 grams of cocaine base, 81,000 81,168 orange pills made to look like Adderall, containing methamphetamine and weighing a total of 35,280 grams. 1,769 pills containing fentanyl and weighing 189 grams. 11,000 pills containing fentanyl weighing 1,700 grams. 6 glass bottles containing 23 grams of liquid LSD, 792 grams of MDMA, 4,000 pills containing MDMA, weighing 2,128 grams, 2,500 grams of ketamine, a vial containing 11 grams of liquid ketamine, and 959 pounds of marijuana. We've charged 14 defendants from New York City, the North Counties, and Western New York. 3 have pled guilty, and we anticipate charging additional defendants. Operation on the Internets. This is a prosecution of an internet-based drug trafficking organization that sourced drugs from Mexico and China for distribution across the United States from a base of operation near Los Angeles, California. 6 defendants have been indicted, 5 have pled guilty. The most recent guilty plea was in February of 2026. One defendant, a U.S. citizen, fled to Vietnam and had to be extradited. We seized over 13 kilograms of fentanyl, 80 kilograms of methamphetamine, 6 kilograms of cocaine, and $3.2 million in cryptocurrency. Project Safe Childhood. United States versus Gear. In September of 2025, the defendant was sentenced to 327 months imprisonment for coercing, transporting, and sexually abusing students at the former Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York. We're having a little technical difficulty. This sick individual was a teacher and worked from approximately 1994 through 2001. The evidence at trial proved that while Gear was a teacher at the Family Foundation School, he imposed various disciplinary sanctions on students that were tantamount to torture. The sanctions Gear imposed on students included depriving children of food or forcing children to eat food that had been regurgitated, binding children in rugs and leaving them in isolated rooms for extended periods of time, and forcing children to perform forced physical labor. The evidence at trial further proved that in 1994 and in 2001, Gear used his position of authority and his ability to impose these brutal sanctions to coerce 2 students to travel with him on separate occasions to Maine and Toronto, Canada. The evidence at trial proved that Gear transported the students across state lines with the intent to engage in sexual activity with the children. While on those trips, Gear raped or otherwise sexually abused each of those 2 children. I don't think 327 months is enough. United States versus Metterhauser. As part of his guilty plea, Metterhauser admitted that he was convicted of possessing child pornography in Pennsylvania in 2011. In November of 2022, Metterhauser conspired with Brandon Whitford to sexually exploit an approximately 4-year-old girl in the Northern District of New York. Metterhauser traveled from his home in Pennsylvania to Whitford's home in New York, where Metterhauser made recordings that depicted the child naked. Whitford sexually assaulted the child shortly after Metterhauser left, recorded that content, and sent it to Metterhauser. The defendant and government agreed upon a sentence of 80 years imprisonment. Sentencing is set for May 14th, 2026. Financial crimes. United States versus Chris Rolieri. In June 2025, a superseding indictment was obtained charging Chris Rolieri with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and wire fraud based in his perpetration of a fraud to victims of his company, Prime Capital Ventures, LLC, located right here in Albany. He enticed people by claiming he could obtain large commercial loans. In reality, Rolieri spent the money on himself and to partially pay back prior victims. In May and June of 2025, 2 of Rolieri's co-conspirators, Christopher Snyder and Kimberly Owen, pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud for their roles in the scheme. In November, Rolieri also pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and will be sentenced in April. During the investigation, the government seized and is now seeking forfeiture of more than 10 luxury vehicles, a multi-million-dollar Virginia mansion, and more than $750,000 in money from bank accounts connected to this scheme. Prime Capital will absolutely pay the big price in April when sentencing takes place. United States versus Adekoya. In June 2025, the defendant was convicted of the trial of a nationwide bank fraud scheme involving the use of stolen identities to steal money from credit unions and financial institutions throughout the United States. The defendant, a Nigerian citizen and lawful permanent resident, was the leader of the scheme. The trial evidence established approximately $2.2 million in actual losses. The other 13 co-defendants pled guilty. Where's Karen? Thought I was going to forget the civil division. Okay, civil division. Our civil division continues to play a vital role in protecting the interests of the United States and the people we serve across the Northern District of New York. This past year, our civil AUSAs and professional staff handled a wide range of complex matters, from defending federal agencies and employees to enforcing the False Claims Act, to protecting consumers and safeguarding federal programs. They also devoted significant time and effort to the steady flow of immigration-related habeas petitions filed in our district, often requiring rapid responses and close coordination with federal agencies to ensure the court has the information it needs to make timely decisions. In addition, their work recovered significant funds for taxpayers, ensured accountability for those who defraud government programs, and defended critical federal policies and actions in court. Just as importantly, they carried out this work with exceptional professionalism and judgment, often in fast-moving and high-stakes litigation. The Civil Division's dedication and expertise ensures that the federal government's interests are vigorously represented throughout our district, and their contributions are essential to the mission and reputation of this office. Healthcare fraud. Our office was the first in the nation to recover fraudulently obtained grant money given to restaurants during the COVID-19 pandemic under the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, or RRF, and recently settled the second such case to be resolved nationwide, recovering $7.8 million from a restaurant chain that falsely certified it was eligible for RRF grants when it knew or should have known that it operated too many locations to qualify. Another company recently agreed to pay $1.9 million to resolve allegations that it received Paycheck Protection Program loans, which it was not entitled to. Civil Division recovered over $6 million from a nursing home chain that submitted false cost reports to Medicare that failed to disclose transactions with related organizations. The Civil Division arrived at a $1.3 million civil settlement with another nursing home the government alleged was billing for care that was so substandard as to be worthless. They are in active litigation against a doctor that held himself out as a pain management specialist, but the government alleged he was actually writing 300 prescriptions for fentanyl, oxycodone, Valium, and other dangerous drugs in a manner that was far outside the usual course of professional practice and for non-legitimate medical purposes, and charged patients a $150 fee for, quote, office visits, end quote, that never happened, although the patients received a prescription for opioids. The civil and criminal divisions worked together to hold responsible a nurse practitioner who used CARES Act provider relief funds for impermissible purposes and continued to bill Medicare for psychotherapy services during COVID, when in fact, she had relocated to Florida and was no longer providing these services to these patients. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison, and the government recovered a combined total of $350,000 in criminal restitution and civil settlements. Civil rights. Our civil division has also been collaborating with the Civil Rights Division at Maine Justice, providing substantial litigating assistance in DOJ-led cases and seeking suit authority for our own cases aimed at ensuring election integrity, challenging state laws that interfere with federal immigration policies or that hamstring federal law enforcement, such as the Stop the Cop legislation. Civil defense. Defensively, the Civil Division worked to defend the administration's actions and policies when challenged, particularly in the immigration context. where the Civil Division has been inundated with emergency habeas petitions filed by ICE detainees, requiring significant briefing within 2 to 3 days. The Civil Division has also been called upon to defend ICE and CBP for failing to turn over certain information in response to FOIA requests, to defend the Department of Education's change in policy to require applicants for federal student aid to provide certain citizenship documents, to defend the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe's challenge to Indian Health Services' denial of a request for HHS to fund operations and maintenance of a wastewater treatment facility, and to defend the administration in a high-profile wrongful termination suit. All of this while continuing to steadfastly protect the federal fisc in our zealous defense of FTCA, employment, and constitutional tort cases. Our appellate division. Our appellate division plays a critical role safeguarding the work of this office and ensuring that the results we achieve in the district are upheld on review. This past year, the Civil Division handled a significant number of complex appeals, defending convictions and sentences in cases involving violent crime, narcotics trafficking, fraud, and child exploitation. During this time, the office filed 47 briefs in criminal cases and 1 brief in a civil case. The office also filed several letter briefs and 20 motions or motion responses in criminal cases. Their work requires not only deep knowledge of the law, but also the ability to clearly and persuasively explain the record created by our trial teams. Beyond briefing and arguing cases before the Court of Appeals, the Appeals Division serves as an essential resource for the entire office, advising prosecutors on legal issues, preserving the record for appeal, and helping ensure that our cases are built to withstand scrutiny. Their expertise strengthens every prosecution we bring and helps maintain the integrity and durability of our results. Some highlights from the Appellate Division. United States versus Gomez. The Appellate Division defeated a Second Amendment challenge to 18 U.S.C. 922K, the statute prohibiting possession of a firearm with an altered or obliterated serial number. The Second Circuit became the second circuit in the nation to uphold Section 922K against a challenge under the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin. More importantly, the Gomez decision was the first to hold that where a statute, quote, regulates a non-functional feature, end quote, of a firearm, such as a serial number, it does not meaningfully infringe on Second Amendment rights. United States versus Civitello. The Appellate Division successfully defended the convictions of Jeffrey Civitello Sr. and Richard Cindy, who conspired to traffic large quantities of cocaine from New York City to Albany. Trial lasted approximately 9 days, and on appeal, the defendants raised numerous claims of evidentiary procedural error. The defendants' convictions and sentences were affirmed in all respects in May 2025 in a published decision. U.S. versus Diaz. The Appellate Division obtained permission from the Solicitor General to challenge Judge Hurd's grant of compassionate relief to defendant Walter Diaz. Diaz was responsible for 2 separate murders in 1993, one prosecuted by the state and one prosecuted by our office. Diaz and his partner carried out an execution-style murder of a rival drug leader near Binghamton, New York, and then fled to New York City. There, they killed a woman on a Manhattan sidewalk as she was loading groceries into her car and walked away laughing. After Diaz served 28 years in state prison for the Manhattan murder, he was transferred to federal custody to begin serving his life term for drug murder. However, Diaz was released by Judge Hurd after serving only 4 years of his federal sentence. Judge Hurd achieved this result by altering the original judgment and ordering Diaz's federal sentence to run concurrently rather than consecutively to his already completed state prison sentence. In our appeal, we argued that this modification was not permitted by the compassionate release statute and was an abuse of discretion because Judge Hurd effectively rewarded Diaz for his decision to commit a second murder. Oral argument will be next month. Administrative Division. Our Administrative Division is the backbone that allows this office to carry out its mission every day. Over the past year, they have navigated extraordinary operational challenges with professionalism and creativity, from managing the government shutdown to carefully stewarding limited budget resources to ensuring that hiring and onboarding continued, so our litigating divisions remain fully supported. They also played a critical role in guiding the office through leadership and operational transitions, keeping systems running smoothly and staff informed during periods of change. Much of this work happens behind the scenes, but it directly enables our AUSAs to focus on protecting the public, defending the interests of the United States, and upholding the true rule of law. Simply put, the administrative division ensures that the rest of us can do our jobs, and they do it with dedication, competence, and an unwavering commitment to the mission. IT, I always save the best for last. Our IT staff also deserve recognition for the critical role they play in keeping this office functioning every single day. Their work is essential to nearly every aspect of our mission, from maintaining secure systems that allow us to manage sensitive investigative materials to ensuring reliable connectivity for our attorneys and staff across the district, to troubleshooting problems at a moment's notice. Their expertise keeps our operations moving. Their responsiveness, technical skill, and commitment to service make them indispensable to this office. Now, I'd also want to acknowledge something that everyone here knows. The past year has not been without challenges. The workload in this office is significant. Expectations from the department and our investigative partners are high. Resources are not unlimited. And like many offices across the country, we deal with staffing pressures and competing demands of people's time. All of that can create strain. I want you to know that those realities are not lost on leadership. We understand that the work here is demanding and that the stakes are often very high. Part of our responsibility is to make sure that the office continues to function in a way that is fair, professional, and sustainable. We are committed to listening, improving communication, and doing our best to make sure people have the support they need to do their jobs well. Looking ahead, the priorities for this office remain clear. We will continue to work with all our law enforcement partners at every level to focus on violent crime, child sexual predators, immigration offenses, illegal firearms. Those cases have a direct impact on public safety across the district. We will continue to aggressively pursue fentanyl, meth, cocaine traffickers, and the transnational drug trafficking organizations responsible for bringing these and other lethal drugs into our communities. We will continue to investigate and prosecute financial fraud, cyber-enabled crime, and corruption when it occurs. And on the civil side, we will continue to defend the interests of the United States and enforce the laws that protect federal programs and the public fisc. So I want to say thank you to all of you for your support during my turbulent time here, having to go through the political process. And I want to say that I'm very proud of the work all of you do. It's a great team. I think it's the best in the nation, and so far the statistics prove that for at least the past year. So enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Thank you again, and we carry on our mission. Take care.